Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you are new. I am Mantis Toboggan.
Now I am the stepson of Krypton.
That may be switched
Uh,
around. We don't know.
maybe.
Um, Today, we are talking about more James Gunn. I know if you're fans of the channel, big shock.
Yeah.
And what he said about the DCU and being open to rated R content. Mantis slash Stepson of Krypton, whichever one you want to be. Are you ready to get into this discussion?
I am. Let's go. Yes, I am.
Either one works. We'll take that. Let's go. All right, guys. So James Gunn did another announcement slash responded to some threads, comments slash everything else he has to debunk and explain and all of this other stuff. But it gives us good content where he talked
He need
about
you know he needs to have a weekly debunking show. He does is what he's. It's like it didn't even have to be that long, like a 10-minute, 15-minute thing where he just calls all the bullshit out. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Right? Like that's what he needs to do.
what we're gonna do here at You, Me, and DC. We're gonna reach out to James Gunn and see if maybe he wants to come on the show weekly to talk about it. And maybe that'll be a good platform for him just to go ahead and crush all these rumors right here on our show. I'll reach out to him, see what he says. I'll message him on threads.
With the World War III stuff looming, we could just say we can call it, debunking with James Gunn, and yeah, I think it would work. I think we know his agent, so we can talk with him.
Yeah, we'll we might do that here, but the only thing is, like he's trying to build up his social media presence. We don't want to interfere with that with all of ours. Like we don't want to get wires crisscrossed here. So
I'm flaky, but he's very flaky. He flakes. He's really flaky on that stuff.
But what he's not flaky on is this being open to rated R content being in the DCU. Now, for all of us familiar with the DCEU, which if you're watching this channel, I gotta feel like you are.
Hopefully you are.
There was a big issue with it being so dark in comparison to the MCU that a lot of people liked, and there was quite a few of the people who maybe necessarily aren't fans. Yeah, there's always the two sides to it, right? That didn't particularly care for how dark the DCEU was, right? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like the battle that are having was, well, the DCU is so dark. There's not a lot of comedy. There's not a lot of levity to it. But we have seen with things such as in the MCU, like Logan and Deadpool and Wolverine, the rated R kind of darker, more gritty stuff does very, very well if it fits the character, right? Obviously, Wolverine being Joker, Wolverine, Deadpool, those being rated R, those fit. And the thing is, I feel like you need to have both, right? You need to embrace, if your character is dark that you're doing a movie on, it needs to be that way. You can't lighten up the character, just like I don't feel like you need to have Superman cussing, right?
Yeah, it doesn't fit it. Exactly.
It kind of distorts the idea of you have... And for a lot of people, Man of Steel Superman was a lot more broody. He wasn't as upbeat and positive as what we've been used to seeing Superman as, which I was okay with. But when you compare it to like Christopher Reeve Superman, who was always so positive and just so kind of nerdishly upbeat, it threw
Here's
people.
The thing too. I will say the grading on film has a big effect on this. Because I think if you shown Man of Steel in not the grading of the film on there was very dark. Like the tone of the visual of the film, right? Like
it was cold, dark, right? Yeah,
yes, it had it wasn't as warm. Like exactly, that's a good term. Like if it was brighter, more it's not like there wasn't themes of that in the film. Like there's this love story between Lois and him, right? Like there's that connection. That's not what we're talking about the feeling of the movie, right? Because Man of Steel was, yes, it was in a more serious tone, but also the way the film looked was very cold, is a great way to put it. It's a very contrast to what Marvel was doing in all of their films. It was very, I will say maybe, like Hellboy, they kind of offset it with comedy in there, but like Thor 2 was very kind of dark. It was very dark, right? Like the grading of it was very dark. The atmosphere,
to be fair, it was
dark.
called The Dark World.
It was. But that makes sense. Like even like all the Christopher Nolan Batmans, very dark. And again, this is Gotham. It's always dark in Gotham. It's not like some Star City, type of thing.
To be fair, Star City's always fucking dark in the Arrowverse, man. It is always as gritty.
I guess, yeah. I mean, in Metropolis is in the games, in TV shows, it's the color grading on is very bright, right? The contrast is high, and I think that takes an overall, like how you view it through that lens affects how you feel when you're watching it. So.
Well, it's funny, if you ever played DC Universe Online, when you're in Metropolis, it's always bright and sunny. When you go to Gotham, it's dark as shit, right? Yeah. Like, it's always just this really depressing kind of a feel. But again, that's the kind of the essence, the aura of that city is that's what it is. Hence why he's the Dark Knight and everything. It is, again, that's why you have tones, right? You have your lighter tones, you have your darker tones. And that's an important thing. Now, I know James Gunn has come out and said that the Superman movie coming out next year is going to be family friendly, right? I think he's going to bring more of that lightheartedness back to Superman that we saw in his past, even in the Christopher Reeve, in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Hell, even in Superman and Lois, we still see him in more of a lighthearted tone versus Man of Steel. I think he's going to go back to that, but he's obviously saying right now he's open to, if the character is supposed to be in that darker tone, he's going to make it in that darker tone.
I think they can coexist. I think you can have characters and stories in the same universe have both of those feelings. And I think, like you said, that's what he's saying. Like there was from this Collider article, they were talking about like, okay, how are you going to introduce that if you do it? Like, are you going to just maybe test it on one show or on a movie or a character and see how it works? And he was very adamant that, it's not about testing to see if it works or not. It's like you said, if it fits with the story, it's not like we're going to say, before we even start this project, like, okay, let's say we're doing a Lanterns show. Okay, we want this show to be rated R or PG-13 or TVMA, whatever. It's not like we start out saying that and then we write the story to fit it. He's saying we write the story how we want to write the story, and if it ends up being that, then so be it, right? You don't box in your creativity to fit a narrative or how you think the studio or the audience wants to receive it. You write the story of how the character is supposed to be written or how you think it is, and then it happens to be rated R.
Punched him, and then he's happened to turn out to be gay afterward.
And characters like the Joker fit that narrative because they are evil and they're dark and they do fucked up shit, right? So it's easy to write that, and when you write it how you want that character to be, then I guess it does end up being rated R.
Well, and for me though, I feel like it's a great contrast if you're doing a very lighthearted Superman, like he's saying is going to be very family friendly in the new Superman movie. You want that contrast even in your heroes. When we bring Batman in, right? That makes them more that gives them so much more depth, because now you're like, wow, here's two heroes on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Here's this lighthearted, very wholesome hero that believes in the good of humanity, and here's the dark hero that is seeing the worst that humanity has to offer, but they want to get to the same goal from two different directions, right? You want that counterbalance. And it's the same thing in your villains, right? You want that separation. Like that way, when Superman fights a villain that is more Batman-ishy type villain, he doesn't really fully grasp dealing with that kind of darkness and that hatred and that evil.
Mental aspect of it.
Yeah, right. He's struggling. He's obviously got the power to take him over, but he can't deal with that aspect. Whereas Batman, would struggle dealing with a hero of Superman's that's a little more lighthearted, which most of Superman's big villains would kill Batman in about 0.3 seconds, and aren't really going to display that kind of emotion. But
right.
you want that separation.
Yeah, it's like if I had to equate like Batman or like Superman in the DCU and the Marvel side, it's like Captain America and Superman are quite frankly very similar, especially the way that Chris Evans played him. Like he was the poster boy of truth, justice, and the American way, right? Like Superman is truth, justice, and the American way. There's only one way, and that's the right way to do it. There is no compromising, and that's exactly how Chris Evans played Captain America. He is, especially when you saw the way Captain America had dialogue with other characters, specifically Tony Stark, who was kind of in the middle ground, right? Like it was like, this is the right way to do this, and we can't compromise on that. I mean, he was very adamant about that in several scenes. And
think about Civil War. Right? When you find out Peggy dies and he goes to the funeral, and she even says, compromise where you can, but where you can't, stand and fight. And that was where he, with the Accords, he couldn't stand that. Like that was too much for him. So he fought. And guys, don't judge me. This is a work in progress. He's not done yet, and neither is Thor. So I got another appointment. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and so it's, I guess, bringing it back to the DCU side of it, where James Gunn's coming from. I don't think he wants to box himself in on a specific way a character should be. And I don't know how that integrates, because you bring up a good point. Let's say Superman, his character's supposed to be lighthearted, and that's the way he writes him, and he's very truth and moral, right? And he has his morals in line. He doesn't compromise on those. Okay, and that's great against an enemy that he can understand. But what if he runs into an enemy that he can't understand? Something that he can't just brute force his way through, in the aspect of, like the Joker, for instance, that Batman's more attuned to.
Now, real quick on that. If we think about the Arrowverse, when they did the Crisis on Infinite Earths, when they go to find the Paragon, and it ends up being Brandon Routh playing Superman again. He even says, because they kind of do the injustice thing, but he becomes basically Kingdom Come Superman in that, because he's wearing the outfit. But he even showed where all of like Lois, Perry, all of them died, and he goes, he played what he called a practical joke, and he gassed the building, right? All of them died. Superman couldn't save them. Why? Because he doesn't think like that. He can't understand that level of derangement, right? So that's something that, even though Joker, I mean, in actually an Injustice, if you guys ever played the game, Superman punches through his fucking head. Like he easily could kill him, right? But it was about that he didn't understand that level of crazy. And hence, like in Arrowverse, there, like he's like, hey, he lost everybody because he couldn't imagine, he can't fathom somebody being that fucking sadistic.
And I'm guessing, and this is where I bring this back to what James Gunn said about, he's like, I don't care, if it's going to be PG, PG-13, G, rated R, whatever, it's whatever's worthy of the story. So how can you mix characters like that? In the Superman line, it doesn't necessarily get in that range. I mean, Darkseid's kind of pushing it there. But it's like, when you get into the Justice League stuff, there could be places where Superman is put into situations where he can't do those things. Like, it's one rule. Like, I know Batman has this one rule, but like, that's fine. He can't kill anyone, but that doesn't mean the villains can't. So is he saying, okay, the Superman movie is not going to be rated R, and that's fine because that's the story we written. But that doesn't mean in future there could be places where Superman is in a movie that is rated R because the villain is doing something bad.
So if you remember, we talked about this when we talked about with the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, how it was planning on tying in, or everybody thought it was going to tie into bringing all of these, or bringing Deadpool into the MCU and all of this other stuff. And we're like, and we even said, you're not going to have an Avengers movie with Captain America and all of them and have Deadpool being Deadpool, right? That's just not going to work, right? Being that perverted and foul-mouthed, that's not going to work, right? Well, with Superman, it's similar, but the difference is that if you look at the core Justice League that we're hoping to eventually see in live action, more so than what we got in the DCEU, we don't have characters like Deadpool in that realm, right? What we're going to have is more darker, potentially, potentially killing, not necessarily, but it is going to have that darker tone that I don't think is out of the realm of Superman being involved in, right? Like Superman could be in a movie where Batman's almost about to kill somebody, but he won't cross the line, but Superman's put in that, right? Because they butt heads a lot in the Justice League anyways. So I don't think it's out of the realm of seeing Superman when we say, oh, he's going to be in a rated R movie, versus seeing like Cap with Deadpool, and Deadpool being the way he is. Like, we got to see Deadpool with Chris Evans, but as Johnny Storm. And like it worked. Like those two characters worked because they both are more foul-mouthed. Obviously Johnny Storm wasn't anywhere near as bad as he was in Deadpool and Wolverine, but it worked, so that's fine. But like with Soup, I think it's going to be more rated R for the dark tones that it could be in it, and it still won't degrade the character, versus if you brought a character like Deadpool into a Superman movie, you're like, dude, this is like, he's being perverted for almost no reason. He's cussing for, like,
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't add to the story. That wouldn't work. But I think in a darker undertone of like what a Batman-ish villain or a Joker-ish villain, I could definitely see him coming into a rated R and being the beacon of light in that movie.
Yeah, and I guess this kind of coincides with what he's quoted as saying. He's like, we've got an opportunity to take these characters and press forward to do what we believe. I'm a great believer that if we tell good, authentic stories, which is what I'm a fan of, if a movie does well or doesn't do well, if you keep with that same philosophy, that you're going to build a universe that people are going to love and want to be a part of, right? You don't compromise on your storytelling and what your overall arc of the story is of your universe just because you want to fit into a PG-13 or an R, vice versa, right? You don't want to make it rated R just because, the last Deadpool movie did great because it's rated R. It's the highest grossing. That may be
it worked
not
for
the reason why it did well. Yeah. I mean, it could work for Deadpool. I mean, and here's not to say too, because I don't know if you want to combine what we're going to talk about with Creature Commandos here, but clearly he's already started doing that. Like, it's not a live action thing, but we're recording this on December 5th, and Creature Commandos, at least the first 2 episodes, like you'd mentioned earlier, came out today. I know you'd seen one. I haven't watched them yet.
So fuck it. But we were going to do this as 2 separate videos. We're going to go and combine them, right? Because we were going to also talk about Creature Commandos, and then we're like, well, fuck. This has to do exactly what we're talking about in this one. So we are going to combine them. All right? Save some time for everybody.
So, I mean, he's already doing that, right? Creature Commandos, while not technically rated R because it's a TV show, technically it's not on... It's a series, so we'll just say that. It's rated TVMA, which we were looking up because I was like, is it rated R or not? And TVMA is the equivalent. Essentially, it's got gross violence, sexual themes, nudity.
First episode, there is nudity. Use. Sorry, guys, there is nudity. Yeah.
So, and again, this is why it's on Max. It's not on Netflix. It's not on some, syndicated network or whatever. It's
dude, I don't know. That first episode, she was wanting to Netflix and chill.
Okay, well,
just saying.
Well, there you go.
That's not a spoiler.
There you go.
Kind of a little bit, but it's fine.
Yeah. So it seems like
again
they're writing these characters, specifically this series, and it's animated, so they get a little more leeway. They can do a lot more things there as far as the violence and stuff without spending a lot of money. But they're going that way with that series, and they chose to do it for a reason. So, and again, if that's what the story dictates, he's fine with doing it, even if it's animated. So,
well, and we also know that Rick Flag Sr., who's in Creature Commandos, is in the Superman movie, but he's also going to be in Peacemaker season 2, right? Well, Peacemaker, obviously, other than the last episode, everything's canon from the original or the first season, and we know what that was, right? It's very TVMA humor, right? I mean, basically, you'd say you're rated R, right? Again, there are the characters that fit that, and then there are the characters that don't. And I think as long as it's done well, that's going to be the interesting thing if you bring them into with a character like Superman, kind of like we saw in Avengers: Age of Ultron, where like when Tony Stark fires at the very beginning at the complex and he hits the shield, he's like, shit. And Captain America's like, language. And they make fun of him. That's going to be Superman, right? Superman's going to be this, like, trying to keep things more, like, age appropriate, even though they're the only ones on comms, right? Like, why the fuck should it matter?
Why do you care?
Superman's going to be like, language, you know, he's going to be that beacon that is just going to, like, it's going to clash with the Peacemaker style. But that's what's also going to make it good, right? Is seeing like somebody like Peacemaker who's trying to be good come up against the, you know, basically the epitome of goodness, which would be Superman in the DC world. So, you know, I'm here for it. I think that's what you need to do, like Mantis had just alluded to. You need to write the content based off the character, not based off something else that you're trying to now fit this character into that doesn't go with that character, right? Don't make the character, because a lot of this, when we talk about personalities and how they act, I mean, that's what is the character, right? That's the reason when we say we don't have good characters is we don't have that, right? They didn't write that. Well, you've written it, and this is what the character is supposed to be. You can't just change that and have the same character. You change the essence of the character.
Yeah, and you know, kind of bringing it back full circle here, and we can continue on with because I want to continue on this Creature Commandos thing, is with the rated R. You know, we've seen Joker. Now Joker 2, Follow You didn't do well at all, but the first Joker film did great. You know, like you mentioned, we've seen The Boys, which is that TVMA. We've seen Peacemaker. You know, there's a couple of these rated R, you know, Deadpool, Wolverine, all the Deadpools, but Deadpool, Wolverine most recently had done really well with rated R and still doing well in the comic book zone. Now, again, a lot of this is predicated on, you know, rated R movies are either very violent, gory, horror type stuff. It's hard to fit some of that into a comic book theme type thing without it going off the rails and like, why is this even a thing? But you know, with Creature Commandos, you said you've seen the first episode, and you know, the whole purpose of the second thing we were going to do was it had gotten really good reviews so far. I don't need to spoil anything.
It started out with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that was a big, huge milestone because this is the launch basically into the DCU. It's down to 96%. Now that, because obviously, you know, it just released today, and everybody who had given it the 100 or people who had early access to it, we are not special. We did not get said early access. And I had to fucking work all day, right? So I came home, I watched the first episode, and then we jumped on this video, all right? So just don't berate me for I'm trying, guys. No, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, so it's still at 96%. Sorry.
Yeah. So how did you so some of the, I'll just read off some of these quotes from some of the critics on here, and I want to get your feedback if this kind of, and this is technically critic comments off of the full 7 episodes, not just the first one that you've seen or even the first 2 that's been released, right? So a righteous good time, a blast to watch and rewatch, which is interesting. Rewatchability is something that is very needed, especially on a TV series if you're going to make your money back. Exciting fun. It's not exactly fresh, but it's fun. Kind of a negative view there, a little bit of a thing, if you can give it based on what the 100% that all of these critics gave it. Gunn's past work for both Marvel and DC will feel right at home, which tends to me to believe, again, we've talked about this before, Gunn's ability to bridge comedy and superhero action in the same realm. He did it with Peacemaker. He did it with Suicide Squad. He did it with Guardians of the Galaxy. The ability to bridge the action and comic book comedy all in one thing. Apparently he's staying in line with that because he wrote all these episodes, right? He wrote all of them. So it sounds like that's what we're getting with this, even in a animated form. Clearly James Gunn brainchild. I spent most of my adult life chasing. This is a very interesting one that I kind of gravitated to. Spent most of my adult life chasing the high of Batman the Animated Series, wondering when something just as dark and daring would make its way into my television screen. And they said, this is close enough. And I know you've only seen one episode, so maybe this is not the...
So there's only 2 episodes out. I'll watch the first one. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to watch the second one. I will say this, though. The one thing that you do pick up from with when you watch the series, or I'll say for the first episode, is that one of the things that I think people had an issue with when you watch the Joss Whedon version of the Justice League is the humor seemed ill-timed, right? It didn't seem like it fit the situation. Like it isn't something where people would make a humorous statement at this time. No, we're in an important moment. Whereas with like Creature Commandos and some of the other James Gunn, but let's just focus on Creature Commandos, is the humor added a point where it made the intense time we were going on. It kind of actually helped it, right?
Elevated
it added something to it, which is, again, it's a James Gunn feature. That's what usually he does with his humor. Is it adds those extra things to that darker time that not only make that part funnier, but then also kind of separate the gravity of the intensity of the situation.
Right, like guy's head explodes. Peacemaker makes a joke about something else, and you're like, oh god, this guy's head exploded, but he just made a joke and it's really funny, and it kind of dulls down the explosion of his head blowing off type thing.
But also still highlights the fact that the guy's fucking head exploded, right? So
right.
And it's a very it takes you have to kind of
delicate.
You have to plan that out, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and that's where the humor has to seem organic, right? That just somebody like that character would say something kind of like a Deadpool thing that would say something that you're like, oh shit, like even though this is a sad time or a fucked up time, you almost chuckle in your mind, right? So Creature Commandos does that, at least in the first episode. Again, there's only 2 out. Don't judge me. I know we're going to release this, and because I will say this other thing too. So real quick, guys, we did a video a while back talking about, well, depending on when this released, a little bit ago, talking about Alan Tudyk, who voices Dr. Phosphorus in that, and that he was not going to, or that there was rumors that he was going to be voicing Clayface, and it was going to be in Creature Commandos. And we did that. We could not verify that. We did have somebody in the comments, and I do appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. Did link a interview where they talked about, and now he's even on IMDb as voicing Clayface, as well as we also did a video where he talked about him being Will Magnus. And we're like, oh, Alan Tudyk, how's he going to voice all these? Because he is slotted to be in the Superman movie. Like, he is credited for that. But no, he is going to be in Creature Commandos. Not only voices Dr. Phosphorus, but he is going to do Will Magnus and Clayface, I think, for 7 of the 8 episodes. So obviously he's a talented voice actor. But I do thank you for saying that, because we had said we can't confirm that he is. We had not seen anything definite. That was definite, and then now it has also been reiterated on IMDb and such. So thank you for that. We do appreciate that. Just wanted to throw that out there that yes, he is going to be playing multiple characters or voicing multiple characters. What that means for the live action, we don't know.
Yeah.
So
well, that's cool. Yeah, I guess so the overarching theme, I guess, of this, and again, the ability of James Gunn to meld that humor, and again, my thing is, it seems to be very high risk, high reward humor, especially within comic books. If you're going to do the violent-y stuff and joke on it and raunchy stuff, it's very high risk, high reward stuff. Either it's going to hit and it's going to be good, or it's not and it's going to be bad.
Well, the thing is, Creature Commandos is kind of like Suicide Squad, right? You expect it to be in that, and obviously like having Harley Quinn and things like that in like Suicide Squad, you expect it to be in that realm, right? So you need that, right? You don't want to go in trying to expect a PG-13 or a TV. I don't even know what the fucking equivalent of a PG-13. No, PG-13. Is in that. I'll have it in there in post, but you wouldn't want to expect that, right? Because then you're gonna get it's like having a PG-13 Deadpool movie. And then you're like, this is not what I expect from this character. But the good thing is, James Gunn knows what to do with these characters, right? He knows who can, and the fact that he is not sticking to nope, they got to be rated R or they got to this. Or we're not having anything rated R because, like with Disney, it's like, oh, can't have rated R. It's Disney. Then they saw Deadpool and Wolverine. They're like, well, fuck. I mean, dude, just made this.
It's right in his wheelhouse. Like this is right in his fucking wheelhouse, right? He did Suicide Squad. He did Guardians of the Galaxy. Misfit, random people put together in a group, and what happens? Like nonsense happens, crazy shit happens. Just the most, and I think he enjoys that chaotic environment of creating stories out of what could happen if you brought, all of this stuff together. What if we mix bleach and ammonia? Like, what could happen? Like, that's what his thought process, I feel like, is with a lot of these storylines. And Creature Commandos is right up his alley with regard to that. He's proven he can do it too. That's the thing, I keep mentioning them all, but I mean, it's like an extension of Suicide Squad. You said it. Like, it's an extension of Suicide Squad, basically, is what Creature Commandos is.
Well, technically, Creature Commandos was the original.
Yeah.
That then end up leading into,
right.
Because, like, Rick Flexiner was way back when, and then he ended up leading with Sun. They're doing it a little differently. I'm cool with that. Definitely go watch Creature Commandos if you have not watched it. Mantis! And then I'm going to, like I said, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to watch the second episode. That's all they've got out right now. But it was good. It was definitely worth the watch. I'm excited to see, and also glad that we kind of wrapped this into one video instead of two. Like I really wouldn't have had a whole lot to talk about with Creature Commandos in the second video.
Are we going to do kind of the same thing we did with Penguin and do kind of like a couple episodes once we get into like maybe 4 episodes and do like a talk about it type thing?
It depends how they release it. I don't know. Guys, I've not looked up to see how they're going to do a release schedule. Are they going to release 1 episode a fucking week? That's going to be a little annoying.
Especially since they're 20 minutes or so. Like, that, you know what I mean?
Like, that'll be a little annoying. If they release 2 or 3, we'll probably do just check-in points, or if they mention, especially if they hit real key points of, like, and just because
big events.
Mantis hasn't seen it yet, but because, like, if they hit certain, big events that also tie back into previous things, we'll talk about that kind of stuff. But, like, if it's just, going on and doing its thing, maybe not, because also you guys have also proven you don't really like when we do that, because we don't do reactions, we do discussions. So it's not that we don't want to put them out, but like, if you guys just aren't going to watch them or you don't really fucking care for them, well, then what's the point, right? Like, we can put them out, but might as well just wait till the series is done, or at least the season of the series, and then we'll just do a whole thing. So, we'll play that by ear. Let us know down in the comments if you want us to do a more episode by episode, if you want us to do more information on a particular character or characters that you don't know a lot about. As well, if you've made it with us this far, consider giving the video a like. He's going to show you where. Subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on all of those videos that could potentially be released. And also, leaving the comment down, do you want to see this, just like we were just talking about? Do you want to see? We can do quick, and I promise, guys, I know this video is pushing over 30 minutes right now, but we can do quicker videos, like short videos on particular characters if you need more information. If you want a little more backstory, not an origin story, because we know how Mantis feels about origin stories.
Don't say the O word.
Backstory. We'll just call it backstory.
Okay. Backstory seems like a shorter type thing. It seems like it's not as involved.
If you need some backstory from the beginning, How about
there
that? That'd be a way to avoid saying origin stories around Mantis. If you need backstory from the beginning of the character, let us know. We could do that video. Other than that, we don't want to bog you down with a bunch of stuff. Like, you know, if we end up doing a video of every single episode, especially since the episodes are 19 to 20 something minutes, our video is going to be longer than that. No, like that's not going to be a thing. So just we'll probably do maybe a midway through and then an end, unless something crazy goes on. But let us know if you want us to change that.
Yeah, and again, comment down below. Let us know what you think. Again, this is a community, so like, you know, Cal had brought up previously about someone that had responded to the video, letting us know where we could find that information.
That was great. Love that.
Know, yeah, more of that, please.
Yes.
Or if you just want us to be like, hey, stop doing that, or hey, talk more about this, or hey, would you guys check this out? Let us know because we'll do it. Let us know.
Even if it's, do you need me to stop being me? I can try. I don't know what that'll look like, but you know,
yeah. Do I need to wear a bag on my head? I can do that. You know.
Oh, well, that's why I got the glasses on. I know I'm ugly, right? So I got the glasses.
Not a plastic one, because then I won't be able to do any more episodes. But like a paper one, I can do.
Start breathing in on the plastic one. Yeah. All right, we're going off the rails here, guys. All right, Mantis, do you have anything else that is actually video related?
No. I'm good.
All right, that is going to wrap it for us here on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, guys, we will see you then.
Later.